Okay, go ahead and prepare your notes for Cornell Notes. Give myself a good size column there. We are on page 66 in our math notebooks, and we are going to be multiplying by powers of 10. Multiplying by powers of 10. So, real quick, in the column, numbers, write numbers of, oh, not of, sorry, numbers like, oh, that's a weird like, numbers like 10, 100, and 1000 are called powers of 10. Powers of 10, because they can usually be obtained by raising 10 to a whole number power, and I'm going to tell you what that means. So let's draw a little bit of a grid here. I need to probably do it too big, but just enough to fit some numbers in. And we're going to draw 2 lines down the middle of that grid. Okay, we're going to put a number sign at the top. And the middle one, power of 10, power 10, and then the answer here. Okay? So first number, let's say we have 1 and 24 hundredths. Okay? We put it through in, and we multiply it by a power of 1. The answer is 1 and 24 hundredths times 1, obviously, is 1 and 24 hundredths, right? Okay, so let's put another number in, and we'll go up to a power of 10. Multiply it by 10. Well, the decimal moves to the right only 1 time. So it is 12 and 4/10. So the decimal literally just moves bloop over 1 time if you're multiplying times a power of 10. If there's 1 0, you move the decimal 1 time. And I'm talking about the 0 and the 10. Now let's look at what it does when you write 1 and 24 hundredths times a power of 100. This is another power of 10. How many zeros do we have? We have 2. So that means we move the decimal over to the right 2 times. So we end up having 124. We don't have to put the decimal there, but you can if it helps you visualize where the decimal is going. Let's say we want to do times 1,000. Okay, so we have 1 and 24 hundredths times 1,000. How many zeros do we have? That means we need to move the decimal to the right 1, 2, 3 times. 1, 2, 3 times. So it's back here, which means we need to put a 0 in there. A 0, a next a 0. Okay, last one, we're going to do 10,000. So 1 and 24 hundredths times 10,000. Well, how many zeros do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we need to move the decimal to the right 4 times. So 1, 2, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like we need 2 zeros in there. And you can put the decimal there if it helps you visualize it. You do not have to have it because this is a whole number. So look at the pattern in these products, okay? We have 1 0, we moved it over once. 2 zeros, we moved it over twice. 3 zeros, we moved it over 3 times. 4 zeros, we moved it over 4 times. So multiplying a decimal by a power of 10 greater than 1, see here, anything greater than 1, moves the decimal point to the right the same number of places as the number of zeros in the power of 10. So rule number 1, count the zeros. Rule number 2, move decimal put a dot there, to the right as many times as there are zeros. Okay, so let's practice this. Oh, have you guys been able to see that this whole time? Sorry. Okay. So number 1 down at the bottom of 66, find each product. So we have 35 hundredths times 100. Okay, how many zeros do we have? 2. So that means we move the decimal to the right. We follow the rules. Count the zeros. We have 2. Move the decimal to the right as many zeros as there are. 1, 2. So it looks like I have a decimal behind the 35. Now it's a whole number, so you don't technically need to have the decimal there. So it could just be as easy as answering it as 35. Okay, number 2. We have 8 and 5/10 times 1,000. Okay, first off, rule number 1, we count the zeros. 1, 2, 3, and that's how many places we move over the decimal point. So if it helps, you write the number first. 1, 2, 3. So the decimal goes here, which means I have to add 2 zeros. So it is 8,500. So I want you guys to practice by doing A, and then come to class tomorrow with the answer. You have 2 and 72 hundredths times 1,000. Okay, what is that answer? And then B, you have 5 and 98 thousandths times 10,000. What's that answer? So follow the rules, rule number 1 and rule number 2, to come up with those answers. Okay, that's going to be it for now, and we'll do some more practice tomorrow. All right, good job, guys. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to Cornell Notes for page 67. We're going to be multiplying by powers of 10 that are less than 1. So it means we're multiplying a number by a number that is less than 1. Anything less than 1 is a decimal, right? So down on page 67, we're on page 67. Number 4 says find 5.4 times 0.01. Well, we learned recently that in order to multiply decimals, you want to definitely multiply the numbers first by ignoring the decimals. Oops, I wrote that wrong. Darn it. 0, 0, 1, the decimal's here, and then 5.4. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 0 is 0, 0, and then we move to the second decimal. 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 0 is 0. So we end up still having 54, right? Because if you look at the original problem, if we ignore the decimals, well, it'd be 54 times 1, which would be 54. And then you count over how many decimal place values we have. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Place value goes here. However, you don't have to really necessarily go through this. You can just kind of ignore those zeros for now and multiply 54, ignore the decimal, times 1. Well, 54 times 1, well, that makes sense. And then you would want to move to the left the amount of decimal places. So we have 1, 2 here, and then 3 here. 1, 2, 3. So the decimal place value would go this way. Do I have the same answer? I do. So this is just another way where you don't have to go through this lengthy process. You really just need to look ignore the decimals. Okay, I'm ignoring Mrs. Nestor. 54 times 1 is 54. And then, starting at the whole number, you count how many place values over that decimal is. 1, 2, 3. We have totally 3. Total 3. 1, 2, 3. And if there's a space there like there was, you have to annex a 0. Remember. Okay? Let's try one more. We'll try E. E tells us that 93 6/10 times 1/10. Okay? Well, right now I'm going to ignore the decimals, and I'm just going to say, okay, 936 times 1 is itself, right? 936. Now I need to count the decimal place values over. This one has 1 and 2. So I start here, because I don't want to mess that up. I start here where the whole number would be 1, 2. I put it there. So you're really just moving the decimal over one time. Does that make sense to you guys? I'll do one more, F. And then we'll practice it some more tomorrow. We have 7 84 hundredths times 0.001. Okay. So now what I want to do is I look at this number, I ignore the decimal. Okay, looks like it's 784 times 1. So that's going to definitely be 784. And I want to give myself room in case I have to annex any zeros. Now I count the amount of place values the decimal is. To the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is why it would be super helpful to have graph paper for math. So I've got 2 zeros I have to annex. Okay? All right, great job, guys.